Table for One, Episode 1. This week we're talking about Castles of Burgundy, the card game, Scythe, 8 Epics, and Terraforming Mars. This is Anthony, and welcome to the Table for One podcast. You may know me from Board Gamers Anonymous, and we had a little solo segment there for a few weeks, and a lot of people liked it. So what I wanted to do is bring it back in a little bit more dedicated space, so the solo gamers out there and I could get together and talk about the games that we're playing, some of the variants we're playing, some of the stuff out there that's on the horizon, and all the fun stuff that we play in our offices after the kids finally go to sleep. So this is episode 1, like I said, and the goal is to have a new episode every 1 to 2 weeks. I have not settled on a time frame yet, so touch back with me next week or the week after, and we'll see how we settle in. But what we're going to be doing each week is we're going to be talking a little bit about the games I've been playing recently, some of the new ones that are on the horizon, any new Kickstarters that might be out there with solo playable content. And then I'll probably do a bigger feature review. So a game that I've been playing a lot. If you play a lot of solo games, you know that typically you'll get a game, you'll kind of get into it, and it'll just sit there on the table, and you'll play it many, many times in a row. Which is one of the fun things about solo gaming, is that you can do that. You can just leave it sitting there as long as you have the space for it, and just go back to it over and over again and just try to solve that stupid level or variant that won't let you through. So we'll be doing that every week or so. And then I'm going to throw in like a topic for discussion. Did this a little bit on the BGA podcast. I want to talk about kind of the different things that go into solo gaming, the way we spend our time, whether it's playing, variants of existing games, bringing children into it, testing games, playing them for fun, solo variants before you go out and play with your friends, all those kinds of things. A lot of different things we can talk about here, and then I really want to dive into. With all that said, I do want to make sure that those of you who found me here just for this podcast in iTunes or wherever you happen to find it, do go listen to Board Gamers Anonymous. We've been doing that one for 3+ years now, over 100 episodes. Chris and I get together every month and we talk about all the stuff we've been playing, recent conventions, recent games, stuff coming up, topics of discussion, game recommendations, just the whole 9 yards. Make sure you stop by and give us a shout there. And for this podcast, it's brand new. So, hit iTunes, give us some likes, leave a comment, let me know what you think. And don't hesitate to hop into the website, boardgamersanonymous.com, and leave some comments on the episodes. I'd love to hear what you think and get your feedback, not only on what we're talking about, but maybe some games you're playing that you want to talk about. I do plan on bringing guests on the show relatively soon. I don't want this to be just me talking at you. Just because it's a table for one doesn't mean I want it to stay that way every episode. So, if you have something interesting you want to talk about, a fun new variant you've come up with, or even if you've designed a game that plays solo, give me a shout out and we'll bring you on. But for now, let's get started with episode number 1 of Table for One and take a look at what I've been playing recently. All right, so the first game I want to talk about is one that I just finally got. I have no idea when this thing was actually released. I've been tracking it for a while because I wanted a copy, but it's been kind of unclear when and where you could get it. But I did finally get one, and that is the Castles of Burgundy card game. Tiny little tuck box, first in a new series for Ravensburger and Alea. And what it is the Castles of Burgundy boiled down to 2 decks of roughly 200 cards. If you look at the table, when you have it all set up, it does not actually look any smaller or less fiddly than the Castles of Burgundy. In fact, I would wager a guess this takes up more room than the board game. But that aside, the actual box it comes in does not. And for the price point, I think we're looking at $15. There is so much value packed into this box. And combined with the fact that it has a solo variant built in, it was a no-brainer for me. This is one of my favorite games to start with. Throw the card game in there. Plays very, very much like the original. Plus a solo variant. Sold. Done. Bought it. Gonna play. So this one's hit the table about 5 times as of recording this. I have not won yet. So there you go. If you're the kind of person who gauges your solo games on how often you lose, this is a good one. The reason I've lost so many times is that the game it plays over 5 rounds like the original, and each round you have to measure your score against that of an AI opponent. Feld calls it Aaron, and I can't remember the exact acronym, but it's something silly about artificial opponent. But Aaron puts out 3 cards the first round, 4 the second, 5 the third, 6 the fourth, and 7 the seventh, or 7 and the fifth. So you have a tremendous number of cards out on the tableau, more than you're going to have. And they score points for those. They're going to get the bonuses before you. They're going to get lots of points. The average score I've seen so far for the AI is in the mid-30s. And my average score playing it solo and with other people is mid-20s, high 20s. I don't think I've hit like the sweet spot of efficiency in this game yet. I definitely can play better, but it is quite difficult. I'll put it that way. I can see losing, 60-70% of this game even after you kind of get the hang of it, just on the luck of the draw, honestly. There are no dice, but you are drawing cards that represent dice. So you have that random element. You might just not be able to do what you want to do. And if the right draw comes up for the AI, they're going to be able to do exactly what they want to do. So it's very interesting. I do like it as a solo game. The problem I have here, and this is only speaking to the solo variant. You can listen to Board Gamers Anonymous for the review of the full multiplayer version, which I think is fantastic. It's a beautiful game. But for the solo variant, I am concerned of the lack of difficulty management. So, a lot of good solo games have ways for you to kind of set the difficulty and then ramp it up as you get better. And there needs to be some randomness. Obviously, you don't want to win every single time, but with Castles of Burgundy, it's pure randomness because you don't know what the opponent's going to get. So you don't know which things to work towards. All I know going into the game is I need to aim for a score around 35 if I want to guarantee I can win. So that's a little frustrating early on. I don't know if it'll stay that way as I get the hang of it and kind of get a feel for the cards and what's out there and how to kind of maneuver around it. But, a handful of plays in, I'm not as hot on this as I thought I might be. Now, I'm going to keep trying. I need to beat it. But give me, another 5 to 10 plays on this one before I come back with a verdict. Because at this point, there are other games with a similar footprint and a similar timestamp that I think I would probably prefer over this. And that makes me a little sad because I love the Castles of Burgundy so much. So we'll come back, hit me up in a month or so. I'll let you know what I think then. So the second game on the list here is another small card game. This one is relatively new. In fact, I think it might have just come out at Gen Con, maybe slightly before that. And that is the newest from Seiji Kanai, 8 Epics. So like any Seiji Kanai game, it comes in a small tuck box. It is 20 to 30 minutes. It is designed for a decent-sized group of 6 players. Unlike most Seiji Kanai games, it is a cooperative game, and plus, also, it has dice. So I found that very interesting. When I popped it open, I did not expect to see what I saw. So the game comes with a bunch of tarot cards. There are avatars. Those are the characters you will be playing. And then there are threats. And these are the challenges that you need to solve. And during the game, you're going to line up all your avatars in the order in which you want to play them. And this is, again, just for the solo version. The regular version is a little bit different because everybody plays an avatar of their own. But in the solo version, obviously, you're playing all of the avatars. So what you'll do is you'll program the order in which you want them to play. And this is incredibly important because a lot of times, if you don't do it right, the character, the avatar you really need for a certain challenge is way back at the beginning of the line when you've already used him. He's already tapped for the round. You can't use it again. That becomes very problematic. So it's a very interesting take on this programming mechanic because each of the avatars has a special ability. So one of them is change any die to a 1. And you can use that as many times as you want. Every time you use it, the life points on that card go down a little bit, represented by a die. And the life each of the characters has between 4 and 6 life. So each of these special abilities, you're going to be able to do 4, 5, or 6 times. There are ways to heal the characters too. So a lot of things you can do to tweak the dice, move them around, adjust them. You do get free rerolls too with each turn, quote unquote. So there's a lot of things here you can do to manage the dice. There's also a ton of challenges you have to meet. So there are 5 rounds in the game with 6 total threat cards. Each of those threat cards has between 2 and 5 challenges you need to meet. And those challenges will be something like have 6 of the same dice, or have 8 dice with a total of 45 or higher. Some of these, basically, you just need to have 8 6s or 8 1s. And the cards in front of you will let you do that, but if you've used them too liberally early in the game, maybe you won't have enough powers left to do that. It's a very interesting game, and I actually, the first time I played it, I did not like it. I thought it was too random, a little too based in luck. Dice were driving too much of this. And then I played it again, and I realized that I kind of picked up some of the, I knew what all the avatars did. I programmed a little bit differently. I made different decisions. I played much more conservatively, and I got a lot closer to winning. I got down to the last card. And then I played again and got even a little bit closer. And then I played again and got blown out. So again, this is a game similar to Castles of Burgundy where I've played it 4 or 5 times now, have not won. But unlike that game, I feel like I have a lot of control over adjusting my strategy and making decisions based on what I think the game is going to do to me that are very interesting. So is it my favorite dice-based solo game? I don't know about that yet. I need to play it a few more times. It's got a ways to go to catch Hostage Negotiator and some of the others. But it is quite good, and I was surprised. I mean, this is a solo variant of a cooperative game, and it works pretty darn well. With dice, though. I mean, remember, it's dice. So if you're not a big dice guy or gal, and you don't like the randomness in solo games, this may not be for you, because it is pure dice, and you're just trying to get them to do a certain thing. Cards are beautiful, theme is interesting, none of it matters. All you're doing is trying to get the dice to do a certain thing. You could play this game with index cards and dice. But all that said, still fun. So this is another one I'll come back to here in about a month or so and let you know kind of if you should pick it up or not. But I'm leaning towards, this has a place. So if you see it around, give it a go. All right, and the last one I wanted to talk about that I've just been playing, a little bit here and there, is Scythe. Now, this game came in on the Kickstarter probably, 5-6 weeks ago. And the 2-3 weeks it came in, I played nonstop. It was set up on my table pretty much consistently for 2 weeks. It hasn't been much of late, just because of Gen Con. So I went on a family vacation, and then we went to Gen Con, and I came back, and I've been playing all the stuff from Gen Con. And so I haven't really had a chance to play this one as much as I'd like after the fact. But I have gone through the solo version of the game about 4 or 5 times, and I've played with each of the different factions. And it is a very, very good solo game with a lot of interesting decisions to make. As usual, Peterson's Automa deck is fantastic. Just the thought that goes into this, the programming, the engineering, it's just beautiful to look at. The only thing that I would say has been a problem, and it isn't really a problem anymore now that I've played it a few times, is the movement of the Automa opponent is not very intuitive. How it's described in the book, and the solo rules for this are like a 10-page booklet of their own, like separate from the main rules of the game. There's a lot here, and I'd say half of that book is movement related, because the movement that they make is not what a human opponent would do, and obviously it can't be. They need to get out on the board, they need to take up space, they need to block points of entry for you. With only 2 characters on the board, it's really easy if they just moved, normally as a human would. It'd be really easy to kind of rush in and take up all that space and score real big. They don't do that. They also tend to be, the Automa tends to be a little more aggressive after that first easy difficulty level. They'll come in a little bit more. You'll have a little bit more combat. None of that's bad. It just is what it is. It's not really how you'd play the game with a group of other players. But the challenge there is really, really strong. And I've had a lot of fun thus far kind of trying to solve the puzzle of the Automa and get all my stars before they do on that card. B, kind of work up the difficulty chain. Like I said, for me, a really good solo game gives you different difficulty tiers so you can work your way into the harder challenges. You don't just play it for 10 times in a row and lose like some of these games. So I have won this one 3 out of the 5 times. 2 on the easy difficulty, 1 on the medium, or the second one up. I think there's 5 difficulty levels. So the game itself, very solidly done, very interesting. One thing I've seen some people talk about on the forums is playing with 2 Automas. I could see this being a much more interactive map. So anytime you're playing this game with 2 people, especially even if one's AI, everything's really far apart. You're kind of just playing in your own little corner. As a solo game, a lot of us, that's what we want. Honestly, that's what I want. I kind of want to just build up my engine and see what it does. But if you prefer kind of the combative tone of the regular game, I could see that, you might want that second deck. As of right now, I'm not really sure how you do that, short of getting another deck, which I'm not sure you can just yet. But it is an interesting way to think about it. This is one where I'm probably going to put a video together and kind of run through it and give you my thoughts in real time so you can see it. Even just describing it, it's kind of hard to wrap everything up in a few words in 4 or 5 minutes. But Scythe this is probably one of my favorite games of the year, with one very important exception, which we'll talk about in about 3 minutes. But it is also one of my favorite solo games of the year. So very good all around. If you think you'll play this with other people, I say it's absolutely worth getting. You'll love the solo variant. I wouldn't buy the game only for the solo variant, just because it's a very expensive game and the solo mode is not so good that it's going to blow your mind out of the water and you never need another game again. So that's Scythe. I'll come back to this one again in a little bit, but very strong, very impressive solo rules put together. All right, so every episode, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper on one big, meaty game that I've been getting to the table a lot, or one small, awesome game. Either way, a game that I've been playing a lot and have a lot of opinions on, and that I feel a lot of people will be very interested in. Or, alternately, one that maybe you should avoid. But that's not what's happening this episode. This episode, I want to talk about Terraforming Mars. This is another multiplayer game that comes with a solo variant. But in this case, the solo variant is extremely good. extremely good. And there's a few reasons for that. Now, I'm not going to do the full rules run through on this one. I have a video review where I kind of give a light overview. There's also a game walkthrough, full walkthrough, that should be up very shortly as well. And that kind of gives you the much more in-depth walkthrough of how the game plays, including the solo rules. But basically what you have is a map of Mars, and you're placing tiles on it to terraform it. So those would be oceans, greenery, or cities. And as you go, you'll be raising temperature, oxygen, which happens when you place those greenery tiles, and placing the oceans. There's 9 of them. Once you've maxed out all 3 of those global requirements, the game ends. So in the solo version, you have to finish all 3 of those before you reach the end of 14 rounds. Now, in a multiplayer version of the game, you're probably not going to play 14 or more rounds because there's a lot of people working towards those goals, and there's reasons why you want to complete those goals. So you can have a lot of people doing it. It's going to be much quicker. I played a 4-player game the other day. I think we did 7 or 8 generations. So much faster game in terms of total rounds. 14 sounds like a lot. It is not very much at all. So that's the first thing. It's very interesting in that you have kind of this timer that has been artificially placed there, but it works really, really well because in terms of balance, every time I get to that 14th generation, I have about 4 or 5 steps left to complete, sometimes a little more, out of those various things that need to be done. And most of the time, I'm not able to quite complete all of them. Now, I'm getting better. I've won the last 2 times I've played. I've won one previous before that. But some of the corporation cards that you play make it that much harder. Now, this is the other part of the solo game that is so interesting. The game comes with a deck of corporation cards. These are the asymmetrical powers that you start the game with, so everybody has a different starting condition. You have a different amount of money, a different resource, and a different special effect. In the solo game, you will pick one of these, and that's kind of the quote-unquote character you'll be playing as you terraform Mars. Some of them are much more suited for rapid growth than others. There are some that give you bonuses for placing cities, for example. City placement is not at all important in the solo game, just because your goal is to get those global parameters done. City placement, you're going to get a lot more cash, but unless you can ramp up that cash really, really fast to pay for all that other stuff, it's not going to be very helpful. On the flip side, some of them will give you a lot more energy or a lot more plants, things that'll help you to actually perform the terraforming actions. So the cards, by their very nature, kind of dictate the difficulty here of the game, because some of them are a little easier than others. In fact, if you go on Board Game Geek, the designer has a thread he's created where he is displaying the high score wins for each of those different corporations. So you can see how people are doing. And last I checked, there was at least one or two that still didn't have a high score because nobody had reported a win yet. So that's the kind of variance we're looking at here. Some of them, there's one or two where everybody feels like they could win one with, and then there's one or two where nobody feels like they can win with. So you have a lot of options, and that deck has, I think 15 different corporations to choose from. So you get a lot of variety here as well. Now, as for the solo game itself, the deck of cards that you're drawing from has over 200 cards in it. So you have so many possible options. I played 3 games back-to-back the other night, and I didn't actually bother reshuffling the deck. I just kind of ran through the whole deck, and the deck lasted for all 3 games. That's how many cards are in this deck. So it lasted for 52 different rounds, 42 different rounds that I was able to play, pulling, 4 to 10 cards at a time. That is mind-blowing. There's so much you can do. There's so many different options. There's so many different ways you can make this work too, because you could just go straight energy, run up your temperature, and you hopefully get enough plants while you're doing that to put out the greenery you need. You could just load up on a ton of cash. You could get your money output up to like 20 or 30 and just pay for everything flat out. So many different ways to play this game, so many different options to kind of run through. Really makes it unique in ways that I don't think I've seen before in a solo game. Honestly, if you just gave me this game and said, this was designed as a pure solo experience, I would believe you. It feels like that. And yet, it is also that good of a multiplayer game. So, as you can tell, this is probably it's in my top 3 for the year for sure right now. It might be one of my favorite games of the year, period. The design here is fantastic, and the ideas behind it, the way it makes you think, there's just so much going on here. If you like space, if you like Mars, if you like science in general, if you like card-driven resource management games, I could list a dozen things. Those are all for you. Now, are there drawbacks here? It's not the prettiest thing to look at, I'll be honest. The game is the printing, the quality of the chipboard, especially on the player mats, not great. Has these awesome little cubes to represent resources, but within 10 plays, they've kind of chipped around the edges, so they're losing their sheen rather quickly. The actual placement and movement of the cubes is very fiddly, so if you bump the table, you might be out of luck. I have a buddy who's actually using 6-sided dice to represent the resources, which they don't move quite as easily, so you might think about doing that. But that's all superficial stuff. I mean, it's one thing to say, this game's not pretty, but that it's in no way going to impact my love or interest in a game that's this good. So I strongly encourage you to take a look at the full review that I put up on YouTube. It's about 10, 11 minutes long. We also have the walkthrough, so if you want to know the rules. The solo rules are pretty much exactly the same as the full rules with like 3 or 4 variants. So just watch that video. You get a full sense of how to play. There's a lot there, and it's very interesting. So, this is a for me, one of the strongest buys I could recommend in 2016 thus far. It's not out yet, so if you have not pre-ordered from Stronghold, I think you're looking at mid to late September for this one, but it is coming very soon, so keep your eye out for this one. That is Terraforming Mars from Stronghold Games. All right, guys, so that's everything for this first inaugural episode of the Table for One podcast. Make sure you stop back by. Check out on YouTube, too. So a lot of these games, I'll be putting up playthroughs and videos and kind of give you a little bit more depth in how they play and how I play them, running through them solo. I'd love to hear from you guys, too. You can hit us up on any of our social media channels. That's Board Gamers Anonymous. We're on Facebook, Twitter at BGA Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Board Gamers Anonymous. We are also on Board Game Geek. We have a guild there. And then, of course, BoardGamersAnonymous.com, where all of these episodes will live, along with Board Gamers Anonymous podcast, Kicking the Habit podcast, and all of our regular review articles. So we are everywhere. If you want to know about the board games, keep a lookout. And please, please, please drop by iTunes, leave a review. This is a brand new podcast, so your reviews right now will help us grow, reach a wider audience. I want to see how many solo gamers are out there. I have a bet with Chris about how big of an audience this is. Prove me right. I want to win this bet. And we'll see how we do. All right, guys, that is everything for this episode. Come back next time, and we'll talk about some more solo games.